Armor, the thing that keeps you from dying, at least for a little while. When most people think of armor, they envision your typical medieval armor that knights wear. But this is armor too, and this, even this. But in fighting games, armor isn't about a piece of clothing that prevents you from taking damage. It works more like a property, ironically an offensive one too. When playing fighting games for the first time, it can be really confusing when interacting with armor. At least it was for me. I didn't understand why the move I clearly hit them with did absolutely no damage and I got punished for it. It's like the opposite of what's supposed to happen. So today, we're going to look at how armor works in fighting games, the different types of armor, and the ways we see it implemented. If you want to see more videos like this, then make sure to subscribe. It helps the channel out and you can always change your mind. Today's video is sponsored by Block Blast. Block Blast is the perfect game to relax and train your brain at the same time. It's simple and easy to get into, but it isn't easy to master. As you progress, the puzzles become harder to solve to keep you interested. The game takes elements from classics and puts a fun, unique twist on it. You drag and drop blocks given to you and clear the blocks when a column or row is filled. Every time you clear rows or columns and chains, they are added to your combo. The more you chain them, the higher your combo becomes and the more points you get. You can see this as the animation changes and produces a cool sound. But make sure you're careful when you're placing pieces because they're constantly being given to you, and if the board has no space for your next piece, the game ends. My highest score currently is 2,551. It started to get kind of hard at the end. I got a little bit of points before losing, but let me know if you guys can beat this score. By the way, Block Blast is completely free and available on both Google Play and the App Store. So if you're looking to have fun in your free time, make sure to click the link in the description below and download Block Blast today. Again, thank you to Block Blast for sponsoring, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of this video. So if armor is different in fighting games, then what is it? Super armor, usually referred to as just armor, is a property that lets the attack of a character completely absorb an incoming attack, without being stunned or knocked back. The move carries on as if nothing ever happened. In some cases like Street Fighter 4 and 5, you'll take gray damage which will recover eventually if you don't get hit. In other cases like Guilty Gear, you'll take a tiny bit of chip damage, and sometimes you'll just take the full damage of the move. But even if there's a sacrifice for the move, it's definitely worth it most of the time. Now, although the example I showed was a normal move with super armor, special moves can have them too, like Potemkin's Hammerfall or when you interrupt Mika's speech. Fun fact, if you let her finish the speech, she can KO you in one move. Basically the opposite of what Dan's super taunt does. Armored moves can also vary in how much armor they have. Depending on the move, it may have one frame or multiple frames of armor. There are generally two types of armor we see in fighting games. The first is super armor, which I already mentioned, and the second is hyper armor.
I missed it. I actually missed it.
Hyper armor works almost exactly like super armor, but there's a slight difference. It can absorb as many hits in a certain time frame rather than a fixed number of hits. For example, we know that Potemkin's Hammerfall has one frame of armor, and anything that hits more than once will stop it. Now imagine if that move had armor the whole time. That would be hyper armor because now it doesn't matter how many times you get hit, you're still able to absorb everything until the move finishes. Xienko in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 has this property on some of her moves. It allows her to be in a state where she can tank everything without getting stunned or knocked back. But the damage is still there. Hyper armor is a lot less common than super armor and for obvious reasons, but in cases like this it's not too OP. Still really good though. You might have noticed a trend. A lot of big characters often have one or multiple moves with armor, and for the most part this is the case. It's usually the big strong character types that get these mechanics. Again, as you've seen earlier, there are some cases where smaller characters have this mechanic, but the reason why most big characters have it is because there's one thing that unifies them: slowness. Slow moves, slow movement, slow everything. Now if they aren't slow, looking at you Sentinel, that's how they become overpowered. But since most big boys are slower than their peers, they often have a hard time defending or poking in neutral. Most of the time you'll have to make big reads in order to get in and start doing damage. And it's not that simple when they have faster normals and can keep you out with projectiles. But that's where armored moves come into play. You don't know how to get in? Use Hammerfall. Are they annoying you with projectiles? Delete them with Iron Muscle. Armor allows these types of characters to have a chance against extreme matchups. For example, Guile vs Zangief, a zoner versus a grappler. Most of the time the zoner's gonna win, but at least with the armored moves Zangief has a chance. But what if both characters have armor, like a mirror match? Oh, well, I guess that makes sense. At that point, it becomes a game of who can delay their attack the most. But if armor is so useful and can be used to counter almost any attack, then what's stopping people from spamming those moves? I mean, so far the only real downside I've mentioned is that you can still take some type of damage. But even then, you'd probably take that trade every time if it means you can take no knockback or stun. Well, first of all, people do spam those attacks. I mean, I would know, I'm one of them. If they don't know how to counter it, then why stop? But there are a few things that keep it from being too OP. For example, Zangief's heavy punch is really slow, like laughably slow. So even though it has armor, it's not something you can just throw out. Now what about Iron Muscle? That move is pretty fast and it has multiple frames of armor. Well, it doesn't do any damage. And for Potemkin, where his hammer falls both fast and does damage, it's a charged input, so it has a natural cooldown built into the move. In the case of Hyper Armor, it usually takes meter to be spent in order to get into that state, and it doesn't last that long. Now there's one thing I haven't mentioned yet. Multi-hit attacks aren't the only way to beat armored moves, but I've waited till now because it's a game-specific mechanic, so it's not universal. In games like Street Fighter 4, each character has at least one attack, such as Gal's Flash Kick or M. Bison's Psycho Crusher, where they can bypass a character's super armor. When a character with super armor is struck by an armor-breaking attack, there's a sound and a visual effect of glass shattering which helps you confirm the attack into a combo. Once you see and hear that, you know that's an armor break. Breaking an opponent's armor does more damage and stun than the attack would normally deal, and it also causes knockback. This is way more effective than just hitting them with a non-armor breaking attack, as you don't get any of those bonuses. Moves with armor breaking properties are also immune to counterattacks. This discourages players from charging a focus attack during their opponent's wake up. All special attacks are given armor breaking properties when they're immediately used after wake up. Overall, armor is an interesting mechanic. Now, does it need to be a thing? I mean, probably not, but as long as there's a reason the move has armor, like getting rid of projectiles, or the move has some sort of drawback, I do like that it adds a layer to the mind games, because not only are you preparing for the attack, but you also have to take into account how much armor it has and how that will come into play. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what your favorite armored move is. Mine is definitely Potemkin's Hammerfall. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Join the Discord if you want to submit your Mugen character for the next tournament. Follow my Twitter for updates. Head over to my Patreon for bonus content, and I occasionally stream on Twitch. I hope you guys have a great day. Peace.
調整ができていないな。お茶を抜け。